Welcome to the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John Tulac.
Again, everybody, and welcome to Professionals of the Inland Empire, which we affectionately call PI. I'm John Tulac, international business attorney located in Claremont, California, and it's my privilege to bring to you the Professionals of the Inland Empire, which features, no surprise, professionals in the Inland Empire who you should know about. These are people who are expert in their fields, who are really, really good at what they do, and have a message to deliver about how to be effective in your business from the perspective of the field that they're in. So today, we have two guests, as we usually will do. We have David Bailey and we have Maria Acosta, and they're both involved in very different ways in human resources, which of course no company runs without, AI and robots and all that stuff notwithstanding. So sit back and relax, have a slice of pie as we get into it with Maria and David. Let's start with you, David. Yeah, that's something in your bailiwick to tell us about what you do and how you do it. So
Sure.
how you got
Thank you,
there. So
John.
we'll kick it off with you.
So I have been doing industrial recruiting for 22 years now. And for those that are wondering what industrial recruiting means, I work with engineering, maintenance automation, and operational management for manufacturing and distribution companies. Those positions are right in my bailiwick, and those are our target areas and target roles that we work on for our clients. Everything from aerospace, foods manufacturing, distribution, as we here in Southern California know, the distribution hub and the warehouse hub completely automated and just continues to grow, and those sectors continue to need our services.
So what's different in terms of industrial recruitment in the areas that of experts in their fields that's different from executive recruitment, for example?
Sure. Executive recruitment is a lot of what they call C-suite, your CEOs, CFOs, COOs, CMOs, all the acronyms. I call that the acronym roles. And so that's usually what you see on the executive side of things. For us, it is everything from, like what's on my desk currently to a CNC programmer and machinist for the aerospace industry, maintenance management for foods manufacturing clients. The biggest challenge in what I do and kind of what separates me from the others is over the last 20 years, 25 years, there's been less and less talent going into the manufacturing sectors. And those sectors now are really, really feeling the need and the wants of bringing in people and replacing people and trying to keep up with today's standards, whether that's automation or engineering standards.
It's interesting that you say that because when I was in my early career and I first started teaching as adjunct faculty at Cal Poly, I was reminding students, especially my best and brightest, you don't have to go to law school. You don't have to go into financial services. Why not think about manufacturing and be entrepreneurial because you could have a very successful career and make a whole lot of money and be very, very satisfied with the fact that you have a tangible finished result when you're making things. That didn't go over very well in the 80s for a variety
Yeah.
of reasons. Is that resonating more now? Are you seeing younger people moving toward careers that would be more inclined to then need you to further advance their careers?
Yeah, you're seeing a huge wave of interest, and it's really twofold. Over the last, let's just say 3 years, you have, if we take it back a little further, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, all the student debt became, college debt, student debt became such big issues. And when you compound that with the AI movement, well, you've got to find a way to generate income that maybe is a little bit more conducive to your interests, to your desires or your passions. And so what happens is currently, as people are saddled with a lot of college debt for degrees that they can't necessarily utilize and put into a a role or a position that would benefit them, they're working jobs to pay off debt, and then AI is obviously taking some of the sting, or put some sting into some of these jobs and replacing some of these jobs. And so the one thing that AI isn't going to replace is the hands-on capabilities of maintenance automation, machinists, whatever the case may be in that realm. And so you're seeing more and more younger people gravitate to those professions. A Some companies are willing to train you. You don't have to go $100,000 in debt. And quite honestly, like the people that I place, they make close, they're either making six figures or above being the maintenance technician. And that holds true not only for manufacturing, but any car manufacturer, any car dealership is looking for maintenance techs as well. And these are all professions that pay six figures, and you're not saddled with a six-figure college debt.
I'm actually surprised that more companies don't start their own training programs. They're all complaining, I can't find the talent. And when they find somebody who might otherwise be talented but doesn't have the training, because we eliminated all that in high school and community colleges and so on, they say, well, stop complaining about it and do something. At least you're training them your way. It seems to me that would make a lot of sense.
No, and you saw it. I mean, there used to be, I mean, Maria knows this. There used to be apprentice programs. There used to be these type of departments or foundations within manufacturing. But then over the last, 25 years, manufacturing's gotten so competitive with the offshoring and everything else. And now things are coming back. And things coming back, it's only going to work if you have the people to take those roles. And I will tell you this, the next time you're out on a commute, next time you're sitting in traffic, look at the HVAC van, look at the plumber, look at the electrical van. They all have now hiring on that vehicle. And one of the unique hiring advertisements that I saw in one of the vans is, "Do you like this truck? You can drive it too. Apply here."
I had to have the plumber in over the weekend, and he was older than I was. And we were talking a little bit about this. And then you look at recent college grads who are sub-employed, for having a college or a university degree. And apparently there's a statistic that says that they're likely to have seven jobs by the time they're 30. And my sarcastic response to that, and five of them will involve making coffee. It just seems like a really tough time today for college students who don't graduate with an engineering degree or maybe a finance degree, or there are a few others where you're going to get a pretty good job starting out. But your philosophy major is going to be a barista, unless they really want to tackle being an actuarial in a life insurance company. It's really tough out there, and I don't know how we help fix that.
In today's current dynamic, that is a challenging fix. For decades, we were told that you needed a degree no matter what. You want to be a production supervisor? Well, we need a degree because the corporate term was called stretch potential. We need stretch potential. We can't make you a manager if you don't have that degree. Well, what's happening, the questions that I would ask in these intake calls, well, what does that degree need to be in? And their response was, well, it doesn't matter as long as they have a degree. And so when you come out of college and you have a geology degree, or you have a, very, as you said, whether it's theology or whatever the case may be, your window to employment is just that much more narrow. And so those skills, however appreciative of the education and the talents and the intellect it took to get that, those are very limited transferable skills. And so, now you're seeing companies back off the degree requirement, looking at talent and all the other variables that maybe they should have been looking at in the very beginning. Because a geology degree is not applicable to a manufacturing environment, but somehow they made it an obstacle to overcome.
That is a disconnect. I would see. We can see why just from the description. Maria, let me turn to you. Tell us who you are and what you do and how you got there, and then you know feel free too to comment on any of the things that we've talked about already. Because I was watching you nod your head on some of that stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason I was hi everyone, my name is Maria Acosta. The reason I was nodding is because I started my career in higher education, so working in colleges. So that's how I started my career from out of college. So I went to UC Berkeley, had a social welfare degree. So again, what are you going to get, right? Other than being a social worker per se. Very, very, very. The degree was very more theoretical than practical. So they weren't teaching me how to be a social worker, but they told me all the history about social welfare in the States. So I started my career in higher ed. So trainings, I totally what he was saying totally resonated just because we had a career services right within our departments and always helping new grads look for positions and we've seen the ebbs and flows of hiring you know but now at least we always said the degree is an entryway depending on the type of degree into positions, right? But a lot of it is experience. What are you doing with it? And so that's when you get into more like interest and aptitudes and strengths. So anyway, that's where I started. I then went into compliance, training and development employees, and then I got into HR. So I've been doing HR about 15 years. I work for a company called Workforce Consultants. So we provide fractional and fully outsource human resources. So work with a lot of small, medium, and even some large businesses who don't have in-house human resources department. So we become it for them. And we place people in those offices as well as, we do fractional, which means what fractional means is that you're doing part of it. So you're there usually remote with some on-site. And one of the biggest things that we're seeing now is the fractional model is resonating with a lot of small startup, even medium-sized businesses, right? Who don't want to have 2 to 3 people in HR and basically will contract it out to experts. And they don't have to deal with hiring. They don't need to have to deal with, determining who has the skill set to be in HR. They just hire us and we come in and we do an HR audit. We build their infrastructure so that we keep them compliant. And one of the things I always tell as new prospective clients is, HR is everywhere, right? HR is your people. And we want you to focus on, bringing in the revenue to your business and let us focus on the people side of the business, which in turn, if it's done correctly, will of course affect your profitability. So
Right. Your company is only as good as the good people that you hire. And, ideally you're hiring people who can fill needs that you can't do yourself if you're the owner slash entrepreneur.
mhm,
It's really hard to manage yourself. Uh,
yeah,
and nobody can be great at everything. And of course, in California, it's an absolute minefield. Employer-employee law is
it's
just
very
crazy
complex.
difficult, and every year our legislature makes it worse instead of better. So, just your keeping up, Maria, has got to be incredibly difficult.
Yes, us keeping up and then of course, ensuring that our clients are, compliant and they're ahead of the game, right? We're preparing them to address things that are coming up. And we've got 2026 already employment law legislation. I'll be presenting that at our next meeting in January. What those are, some of the minefields, some of the things to be aware of, some of the things to prepare for. Preparation for us is key, preventative, before the lawsuit comes, before you terminate, let us evaluate, let us review risk, let us make sure that everything is in order.
It's so, people think I can't afford to hire a consultant, but not doing it right can be disastrously expensive. And so you really can't live without an HR arm to keep you safe.
Exactly. And a lot of unfortunately, a lot of our smaller businesses, because they haven't had an issue, they think that they're just, they're safeguarded until it happens. And one of the things we're seeing, I have quite a few manufacturing and distribution clients who, were started off really small and then they've grown and they haven't had HR. Their payroll person has done HR or their ops person has done HR. And so, now that they're growing, there's new laws that affect them as, that with the 50 plus employees versus being less than 50. And so it's important for them to keep up, and they don't always know how they keep up until they get, until they get a request for employment records and they're like, what is this? And then we get the call. And sometimes it's like, okay, let's set everything in place so that, we can mitigate or minimize the risk that you're being exposed to.
Exactly. And the size of the firm in terms of number of employees and what kicks in and when, state and federal, different numbers for different things. So there's no, oh, I'm not at 25 people yet. Well, that's not the hard.
Exactly.
Again, keeping up with all that stuff is difficult to do. So
Exactly.
in the fractional HR role, you're a consultant, but in California, if they want to treat you as an employee, do you have to then be the employee of the company to be a fractional HR person?
No, so basically because we're under our own company, we become a contractor for them because they
Right.
don't have that in-house. And so with the new laws with who is a contractor versus who's an employee and some of the laws, we basically safeguard the company to make sure that they know that we're, W-9, we're a contractor, we're there to provide a specific service. We have a contract that says the terms, how we get paid, all of that. So we have all that safeguarded already. So we don't have to worry about that part of it.
But what if you're if you could be a company, but if you're a one-on-one kind of consultant, you're the consultant and you're dealing with a company. Yeah, I have heard the state says, no, you have to be an employee of that company. And you say, but I've got multiple gigs. Yeah, but you're doing the same thing, and you're only one person, so they want you to be classified as an employee. So
Yeah.
that strikes me as absurd, but this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I think it's just a lot of it is, yes, that's true, but it's how you set it up, right? What does your contract look like? What what are the components to the contract? And we make sure, like, because I work with a lot of companies who we've had to do an audit for their employee classifications, right? To ensure that their employees are being classified correctly. An employee versus a contractor, exempt versus non-exempt. There's rules in all of, those classifications. And so we make sure that if they do have a contract, there's a test, right? There's a three-pronged test that you would follow to say, okay, are they a contractor? Are they not a contractor? And these are the differentiating, and make sure that you have it substantiated and documented. So should it ever come up or be questioned, usually I will say it comes from the employees, those types of questions. It comes from the employees, and then, they get reported, and then an investigation is done regarding, classification. So,
Okay.
we're very well aware of that. And we definitely, any new client that we have, we're able to really set it up when we're doing that fractional role. I mean, there's some that we're fully managed services. Fully managed services means that we have 3 employees at your work site full time, but there are employees, but their location is the company. And so they don't want to hire their own. They want to do contract for different reasons, but we have to make sure all that's documented, and we cross our T's and dot our I's.
Always the right way to go about it. David, do you encounter this at all with recruitment? Someone who is maybe more interested in gigging as opposed to a permanent placement. Does this come up in the recruitment side as an issue?
Only on the backside. The typically when I work with candidates in that nature, they're done being a W-9, that they want to be a W-2 employee again. They didn't like, they were very good at the hands-on aspect of what they did, but then when you factor in the headaches that come with owning your own company and the nuances and all the things along that line, that's where usually I deal with it when they want to get back into the workforce. Anybody that's looking to, stay in their own capacity under their own umbrella and, do project work here and there. That's I'm not the marketing machine for them for that, for sure.
Okay. So what's the biggest threat or risk that employers are facing today when they're looking at bringing on new people? Whether it's through the services of someone who's been, I assume you're retained by the company to do these searches, David. I should have asked you that earlier. Or are you retained by the employee looking for work?
Yeah, no, the all fees are paid by the companies.
By the company.
And
Okay.
so, early on when they used to refer to what I do as head hunting, there is some still remote, like we'll call it executive coaching or professional coaching that offers a coaching service and placement services, and that is a cost to the employee. But 95% of the market is driven by fee-based through the companies engage with me for XYZ position, details, what have you, and we share candidates and start conversations.
Okay, and for
My
someone who's looking for help to get placed in the right spot, are there services for that as well? Is-
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I work with those folks as well, and so if I had for instance, if I had an engineer, let's just say an electrical engineer, come to me, he was referred to me, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a new role." Well, I will absolutely work with that. I mean, first thing I would do is reference my existing job orders and my active list, and then go to my clients. And you can do some marketing, to clients, and you're looking for this particular skill set right now, because in the hiring business, and Maria knows this so well, we don't always know what is being discussed behind doors with regards to hiring. And so sometimes it takes a prompt. Here, you happen to be looking for this role, or, well, we are. We're just talking about that 2 weeks ago, or something along that line. And so that's how a lot of those introductions are made. I approach my job in 100% sincerity in helping people. And whether that's helping the candidate or helping the client, there's movements on both and movements and appreciation on both sides when it's the right fit.
Sure, that makes sense. So Maria, back to my question about threats.
Yeah,
If you're an employer and you're looking for a new hire, even the intake process can get you in trouble because you say the wrong
absolutely.
thing, you ask the wrong question.
Absolutely. The
How
hiring
do you
process.
navigate that?
No, that's a great question. That's a great question, John. Yeah, so in terms of, there's some now pay transparency laws. There's, protected classes with regards to hiring. Right now with AI, there's a really big look at if employers are using AI to screen out candidates, right? There's a couple of lawsuits out there right now with regards to employees saying I was discriminated against. And so now even with some of my current clients who are, hiring, and even us, because we do some in-house hiring, or we'll do like the final selection on candidates. We have to make sure that if we're using AI at all, with regards to like an Indeed doing, sending you resumes or doing some pre-hire uh, reviews. We've got to make sure that we have a process that's set up that a person is actually also re-verifying and documenting how that happened, right? The other piece tied to that is the onboarding piece, right? So after you hire them, making sure that, your application is compliant, right? You're not asking certain, criminal related questions to your application, that your onboarding is complete, that the appropriate documents are given, notices, especially in California. There's a lot of notices regarding, harassment and discrimination and leaves, eligibility, all of that, time of hire, our wage theft notices. There's a lot of notices that must be given. So that's one of the first things that we do when we do onboard a new client is we do HR infrastructure review and audit to make sure that all those pieces are in place so that we can address them from the get-go going in, right? Starting employment. Then of course we get into the other, the classifications, the pay, the wage and hour, the PAGA, the infamous PAGA, information regarding wage and hour, meal breaks, rest breaks, overtime pay, all of those pieces are in place. So we have a 32-point HR infrastructure that we do for new clients just to make sure that we're touching every piece of risk and mitigating that.
Yeah, it's extensive how much you have to prepare just to do an interview today. And back to the theme of AI, I was reading about how especially big companies get overwhelmed with applications for a lot of jobs. So they're using AI for the first pass, and that's meaning there's no human interaction whatsoever, and AI isn't catching everything that a human being would probably catch. So they'll pass through some people who aren't qualified. They'll pass over some people who are qualified, and then you're left going like this. Going back to what we were talking about earlier with the younger people and difficulty in getting employment. It just seems like all the things are stacked against you, especially if you want to get a job in big corporate America, where this becomes so impersonal. I mean, what do we do about something like that? Yeah, well, say I'm not answering that question.
That's
Talk about
I,
cybersecurity.
no, I will always say that, there has to be a human element within the process. You can utilize AI for certain pieces, and it's very, cost effective or time effective. But, some of these lawsuits that are coming through with regards to AI and companies kind of saying, well, I thought that, it was being done correctly. That doesn't fly, right? And they're having to settle these lawsuits. So they're human, that's never going to go away, recruiting, that human touch is invaluable. So that, that would be something that that we have to embed in the process. It's my kind of position in there.
So again, the experience that comes from being human and living a life and building, the knowledge, the experience, and so on is clearly valuable. I mean, David, I mean, if somebody comes to you, whether it's a company or an individual, I mean, you still have the right to say no, right? It's like, go away. I don't want to work with you.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But
You know,
if you have an employer in a manufacturing company, you got to be a lot more careful about saying go away, right? Maria?
Yes.
Yeah,
We got to make sure that we did our review and that we have documentation of why they were not chosen to move forward.
right. And I would think that you, I don't know how you get through the distinction between where you have the virtually unfettered right to say no, uh, but you can't violate public policy, which we all understand. And where you divide the line, where you say we're going to micromanage that decision for you, which is the workplace to such a great extent. No, I can second guess that. That was racist, or that was sexist, or that was something. Where a professional, we might be in a much easier place to say, that just doesn't fit my service profile, so I can say no. And so you might have, at least for today, and maybe through 2026, David, you might have it easier in some ways than Maria's clients. But I don't know how long that'll last in California. You know, if we don't like it, we can move to Idaho, where they don't regulate anything. And by the way, that's appalling too, for a whole set of other reasons on the other extreme. Okay, well, I want to thank our guests, Maria Acosta and David Bailey. These are people who know what they're doing. And if you don't, in these particular areas, these are the people you should be calling and getting their help, so that you don't end up on the wrong end of a PAGA claim or a misfit match because you didn't really do your homework in terms of who you hired, where someone like Dave can help you. So again, thank you very much for being my guests on Professional of the Inland Empire. We're going to be back real soon with another episode. This will be posting this Thursday. So until the next time, so long for now.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching or listening to, depending on the case, the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John W. Tulac. If you have a suggestion for a guest, email him at jwtulac, that's JWTULAC @gmail.com. jwtulac @gmail.com.